What's going on, guys? My name's Tyler Potts, and in today's video we're going to be making a music app UI, kind of like how Spotify and all those apps are. We're going to be making our own UI. It looks like this. We're going to be using HTML and CSS, and then if you guys enjoyed this video, in the next video we'll hook it up to JavaScript and actually make it an actual music application. So without further ado, guys, let's get into the video. Okay guys, so I've already created a folder with the following in it. We have an index.html file, which is empty at the minute, and a main.css empty file as well. These are the only two files we actually need for this video, but we also have this icons, CSS and web fonts here. Now these icons are actually from Font Awesome. So to get these, if you go over to fontawesome.com and /start, there's multiple ways you can do this, but the way I've done it is by clicking on download. And then if we go through to download, it brings you to here. And then you can actually download yourself this icon pack. So when you download it, I'll even show you me downloading. I've already got it, but if I click on this to open it, once it's downloaded, it'll expand it. And you can see here we have these files in here. Now you only need two folders from this. You need web fonts and you also need the CSS folder. So you need to grab those and drop them into your folder. You can drop them anywhere. I've decided to create an icons folder and drop them inside of that. So as you can see in here, the only file we actually need is all.min.css, and we need all these web fonts, but we don't need to actually do anything with the web fonts. So now we've got that out of the way, let's get started on with the HTML side of this music player. So this is going to be broken down into many different parts. Now, if you're wondering what I just did there, I used exclamation mark and hit tab, and what that did is created this boilerplate HTML markup code. That is something called Emmet, and you can research that if you want to know more. So as we've got here is this boilerplate document, and inside document we're just going to say music app inside the title. Now we need to link our icons style sheet. So what we're going to do is do /icons css all.min.css. We then need to link our main.css. Now, obviously, we could actually do relative like we've done there, main.css, and that will link that up. Now, inside of our index.html, we then want to start off with an app wrapper. So this is what we're going to use to position our player. So we're going to create a player inside of that. And now the player is going to be the white box you saw at the start of this video, which wraps the controls and the image and the details. So in here we need a .song image. Now there's a diff because we're going to use a background image and some other little tricks and tips I'm going to show you with CSS to create a nice little floating, always in the right size image, basically. We then need song details. And inside of here, we need a H2, which is going to be the song name. I'm going to do Forget Me Too, featuring Halsey. Great song by Machine Gun Kelly. And then underneath song details, we're going to have player controls. Now, inside of player controls, we're going to have a few buttons. So we're going to say button times 3. Now, the first button is going to have a class of skip-button. And then we're going to say skip back. And then inside here, we're going to use an icon. Now, if we go over to here, we can click on icons at the top here, and it's going to load the icon gallery. And then we actually need a back button, right? So I already know what it's called. It's called backwards, but you can search for whatever you want. And it's going to show up in here. Give it a minute. There you go, backward. So if we click on this backwards icon, it'll give us the code we need to implement it. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to paste it inside of this. Now, because we've imported this icon pack, this will now just work by default. So let's just save this and run our server. So I'm going to press Ctrl-Alt-T to open up the built-in terminal. And if you guys don't have HTTP server installed, You can install it if you have an npm installed as well as Node.js. If you don't know what they are, you can just open this index.html file by dragging it and dropping it into your browser. But I'm just going to run, all you have to do is run npm i-g http surfer, and that will download http surfer for you to then run http surfer enter. Sorry, that was very long-winded, but I just wanted to explain what I was doing here. So I started a local surfer. I can click on this link, and as you can see, it opens up here. And the icon we just grabbed from the internet, this one here, has now ended up inside of this. Now I'm also gonna write on this fa-lg, and all this stands for is make this icon large. So if I refresh here, you can see it's now a bit bigger. Now we're going to literally copy this button here, and we're going to replace the bottom button down here. We're then going to change the back to be next, and then we're going to change the backward to be forwards or forward. Save and go along. Refresh, and there you go. We've got this and this. So we've got those buttons down, but now we need a play button. So I'm just going to copy the code for this as well. I'm just going to replace that. But now I'm going to replace the classes in here, and we're just going to call this play button. Then over here, we're going to say FA play. Again, if you don't know what the codes are for this, you can just go over to the Font Awesome website and have a look for it in here. I'm going to close this now because I know the ones we need off by heart. And this, instead of doing XL, I'm going to say 2X, and that's going to sound for 2 times the size of the original. Now, large was only like 1.5 times bigger. This is now a whole 2 times bigger. So let's refresh, and there you can see it's a lot bigger. And for the design we're going for, it needs to be a lot bigger. So far, this is looking kind of ugly. We've got pretty much the whole markup done. We just need this next up diff at the bottom. We're going to have a paragraph which says next up. And then we're going to have a span that says the next song. So I'm just going to say kindest regards by, and I'm just going to give the artist name here, Whit Lowry. Hit save. And if we go back, that is the last thing we needed for our HTML. So this is the HTML markup. I hope that was very clear. If it wasn't, please let me know in the comments and I'll try and be clearer next time. But for now, as you can see, we have this basic markup for our player, and this is all you need. This is how simple the markup for this was. Now the CSS is a little bit more complex, but it's not too complex. So let's head over to the main.css. Now the first thing we want to do is grab the all selector. Now what this selector does is select everything inside of the DOM. The DOM is everything inside of this body tag here. Now as you can see, we've got this all element, so it's literally looking for any element on the page. And we're just going to do some resets. I'm going to say margin 0, padding 0, box sizing border box, and I'm going to give it the font family of Fira Sans serif. Now I'm not importing this font from Google Fonts or whatever into my thing because I have it downloaded on my machine, and for this tutorial I don't need it to be live. But if you want a special font or this font, you can go over to Google Fonts and they give you a link, they tell you how to do it, and you just throw it in here. I'm not going to explain too much on that because it's not important. You can use Arial or whatever font family you want to use that works on your machine. So I'm just going to say background color, EEE for the body. So if we go over here and we refresh, you can see everything's looking slightly different. There's no padding now, there's no spacing, and the font's changed, and everything else is changing. So there we go. We've got the basis down. We don't want to get the app wrapper. So we've got the app wrapper here, and what we're just going to say here is display flex. So we're going to be using the flexbox model, and we're going to align everything to the center. We're then going to justify the content to this center, and we're going to give it a min height of 100 VH. Now this unit stands for viewport height. So you're going to get the height of your viewport here and center everything into it. So it's basically going to make the app wrapper fit the whole entire screen, which is perfect. That's what we want. We now need the player, and the player is going to have a background color of white because we want it to stand out. There you go. It stands out a little bit more, but not too much. Let's give it a padding of about 100 pixels, 50 pixels. A width of 414 pixels. The reason I'm doing this is because this is the same size as the iPhone 6, 7 and 8 Plus. which is kind of a standard for iPhones. Obviously, iPhones are one of the biggest, Apple are one of the biggest manufacturers of phones in the world. And, well, you know, we need to stick by that. But we're going to set the max width of 100%. So once it hits 414, it will not go above 100% of the screen width anyway. We're then going to give it a border radius of 16 pixels just to bevel the edges a little. So if we refresh it, you can see it's starting to look a bit better. We've got the bevels. You can now notice this big little box, cardboard box. But let's make it pop out a little. So box shadows are awesome because they give a shadow behind the element and it makes them look like they're sitting or floating on the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 0 pixels. This is the X value. 3 pixels downwards, that's the Y value. And then 6 pixels is going to be the spread of the shadow. We're then going to get the RGBA value of 0, 0, 0.2, and this is just saying the color, and this is the opacity. So now if we go back and hit refresh, you can see it's got this nice little hard shadow going around the edge. Now we can soften this by putting this to, let's say, 12, refreshing. You see it softens it, it spreads it, but it also softens it. We can turn that down to 1, and there you go. Now it's kind of like a nice floating edge, which is really nice. So let's now work with the song hyphen image. Now the song image, we're going to set to position relative because we're going to need absolute elements inside. We're going to set it to display of block, and we're going to give it a margin of 0 auto. This is going to center it to the center of its element or parent. We're going to get the background color and we're going to set it to FE4880. So that's a pink color. The reason we're doing that is so we can see it a bit better. Obviously, you can't see it right now. Let's give this a width of 200 pixels. So that's going to be about 200 pixels wide. We're going to give it a border radius of 50%. That's going to make it completely round. So there's going to be no square edges on this at all. We're then going to give it a box shadow. Now the box shadow, we're not going to do just like we did above. We're actually going to make it slightly bigger. So we're going to say 3 pixels, 12 pixels, and RGBA 0, 0, 0, 0.3. Because we want it to be a harder shadow because it pops out a bit more. It makes it look like it's sat quite heavily off the page. So we've got that box shadow. Let's go back, refresh. You're not going to see anything because, again, it doesn't have a height. Now, we're not going to add height in the traditional way where you would say height is equal to X, Y, and Z. We're actually going to use something called after. So we're going to do .song image after, and this is a pseudo element. If you don't know what a pseudo element is, I'll show you in the console in 1 second. So let's just say content. So the after and before pseudo elements need some content. Now it can be blank, but if you don't have content at all, nothing will display. So you need this anyway. We're then going to set the padding top to 100%. Now I'll explain what this does in 1 second. So how padding top works, if you use a percentage, we'll gather the width of the element, the parent element, and it will say, okay, so that's the percentage of the width of the parent. So let's say if the parent width is 200 pixels, 100% padding top will be 200 pixels, which means we're going to create a perfect circle no matter what the screen size is. So if we just come here and we drop this down and we go to player and we go to the song image. So you can see here we've got this. It looks all right. Let's give it a max width as well of 100%. Now, if we start shrinking this down, you can see that image, that circle shrinks perfectly with the screen size. Now, you can see we have in our markup, we haven't put anything inside this song image. But inside of the player, you can see there is this after class. And that is what we're doing with this pseudo element. We're saying it's content to something. So if we disable the content, we go back and we refresh, you will see, you should see, if we refresh again, there you go. The image has now disappeared because it doesn't have anything inside of it. So we need content because it needs to have some sort of content to be active. And there you go. And padding top, as you can say, let's say if we did 50%, and then we hover over this, you can see it's actually half the width, which is 100 pixels. Let's just refresh the page. There you go. So let's go back up here. We actually need a couple more. We need margin bottom of 50 pixels. we need not a height, we need a max width of 100%, which will obviously, in case it gets too small, we'll shrink it down with the screen. We then need to set up some background image stuff. So we're going to say background position, and we're going to set this to center. We're going to say background size cover, and finally we're going to say background repeat, no repeat. To be fair, with background size cover, you don't actually need no repeat, but I like to add it anyway because I'm weird. But there you go. So that's that done. This is now finished. But we need an image. We need an actual image. So we could give it a URL. And let's just say we had a folder called images with a song-1.jpg inside of it. So we're going to set this for now, but in the future, when we do JavaScript, we're going to set this dynamically. So let's go get this image. Bear with me one sec while I drop the image in. Okay guys, so I've dropped the image in inside of a folder and called Song1. As you can see, it's MGK's Tickets to My Downfall album cover, and that's the image we're going to show. So if we go back here and we refresh, you can see it's now looking like a lovely floating image. So that's really cool. We've got that all in. Now we need to actually get onto the before. So we actually have a ring around this. So just to give it like a cool little effect, I'm going to show how to use song image and then before. So we had the after pseudo element, but now we've got the before pseudo element, and the before pseudo element will appear actually before the after. It makes sense, trust me. Content, this. Content is nothing, it's just an empty string, so it has something. We then need to display block. We then need position absolute, so it's floating. And we're going to give it a top of -20 pixels, a left of -20 pixels, a right of -20 pixels, and finally a bottom, can you guess what it's going to be? -5 pixels. No, I'm joking, 20 pixels. We're then going to say border is equal to 2 pixels solid EEE, and we're going to give it a border radius of, again, 50%. So let me explain what's going on here. So we set the position relative of this image. This means this absolute positioning is relative to the song image. We then minus the margin by 20 pixels all the way along, which means this is going to be 20 pixels bigger on all sides than the actual song image element itself. We've gave it a border of 2 pixels. We've made it a solid border, so we could do dashed. I'll show you what dash is, and then we'll change it back to thing in a minute. And then we've got border radius. So if we go thing and we refresh, you can see we've got this nice, actually, oh no, I like it better. I'm going to show you what solid looks like. So this is what a dash line looks like. A solid border is obviously, as you can see, a solid border, but I'm going to change this to dash. Now this is a last minute change. This was not what it was supposed to look like, but this is what it looks like now. So you know what, I appreciate the changes we've made, and it looks pretty awesome. So there you go. So that's the image done. That's cool, but we now need to do the song details. So inside these song details, I'm sorry, I've just realized this is really zoomed out as well. So let's zoom in a little. Song details. So what we're going to say in here is we're going to text align everything inside to the center. So all text will now be center, and we'll give it a margin bottom of 30 pixels. Save. And there you go. So now it's looking better already. But we're going to say song details, song details H2. We're then going to give it a font size of 24 pixels, a font weight of 600, a color of a very dark gray, and then a margin bottom of 5 pixels. So if we save and we refresh, there you go. Now you can see the effect taking place. It's looking a lot better already. Let's do the H3. So we're going to say song details H3, which is going to be our artist names. Now I want this to look a lot less from what important from the actual song name. So I'm going to make this 16 pixels. I'm going to give it a font weight of about 500, so it's slightly less thick than the actual name. And then we're going to say color is going to be 888. Hit save, go back, refresh, and there you go. But it's a nice little small name. So we've got the song name. Obviously, it shows who it's featuring in here. But then we also get the nice little names down here. So that's awesome. But now it's time for the really fun part, and that's to do the buttons. Buttons are always fun, but let's make them look really cool. So we've got in our markup, we have these player controls. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down here and we're just going to say dot player controls. And we're going to display this as flex. Because this will now, if we save, it will put them all in line. You can't actually see what happens. But let's say align items center. So now they're all in line with each other vertically. So these sit in the middle of this. Let's justify the content center. And let's give it a margin bottom of 30 pixels. So let's hit save and refresh. And there you go. So now these are centered. That's great, but they still look really goddamn ugly. So let's style them up. Let's start with the button we all want to start with, which is player controls dot play button. Now what we're going to do in here is we're going to display this as flex. We're going to align the items in the middle to the center and justify them to the center. So that's the icon we're centering there. We're then going to give it a width of 75 pixels, a height of 75 pixels, and a border radius of 50% to make it round. And then we're going to give it a background color of FE, the same color we used earlier, FE4800. We're going to give it an actual text color of white. So that's actually going to change the color of the icon to white. And as you can see, it's already looking a lot better. But there's some resets we need to do. Let's actually give this... Sorry, let me just remove that. Let me just say here, we want a border of none. We don't actually want a border on it. We don't want an outline. So when you click it, as you can see, look, you can see that's the border. And when we click it, you get this blue outline. We don't want any of that. We're setting them both to none. We're then going to get the appearance and we're going to set that to none. So an appearance is kind of like, it's what's default. So like iOS and stuff like that have their own button styles. But this will make sure no OS or no browser changes the styles by default. It completely removes it. Then we're just going to set the cursor to be pointer because we want it to look like we can click the button. And there you go. So that's looking good. We actually need a margin in here of 0 pixels. We don't want any on top and bottom, but we want it 30 on the left and right. So that's going to push away our two buttons there. But this button doesn't look that cool yet. Let's add a box shadow. Box shadows are awesome. As I've told you before, we're going to say 6 pixels on the bottom, 12 pixels on the spread, and we're going to set it to 254, 72, 128, and 0.6. Now this is going to be a pink. So this is going to be this pink in RGB value at 60%. And the reason we're doing that is so you can see we get a pink glare. Now that looks really cool. I already like that, but I think we can do better. When we hover over it, we need to do some sort of animation, right? So let's do a transition. So let's say transition 0.4 seconds. Let's copy the selectors up here, paste them down here, and I'm just going to say on hover. So when we hover over this button, what we're going to do is we're going to grab this box shadow, and all we're going to do is we're going to set it to 8 pixels. And we're going to set it to 16 pixels. And the opacity is going to be 0.8 pixels. So that's going to make it look a lot more defined. So if we hover over this, you can see it expands out. It looks like it's hovering a bit closer. It like floats out on screen to us, which I think is really cool. But now let's sort out the player controls .skip buttons. Now all we need to do is say background none, border none. So like we did with the other one, we need to say outline none, and appearance none. We don't want any default button styling. We want the cursor to be pointer, and then we want to have a color of CCCC. Now if we go back and we refresh, there you go. The buttons look really good. They're kind of faded out, but that's good. And then on hover, let's just go down here. When we hover over one of these buttons, the color will go from CCC to about 888. Let's add a transition in here as well, so it actually doesn't snap and instead it smoothly goes to that color. So as you can see, when we hover, it kind of gives us a little effect that you can actually do something with it. And I really like that. So there you go. That is awesome. Now it's time for the final part of our little thing here. And then we're going to do a bit of responsive work. So what we're going to do is we're going to go dot next hyphen up paragraph. And we're just going to give it the color of AAAA. We're going to text align center. We're just going to give it a font weight of 500 and a font size of 16 pixels. So you kind of get how that works. We're then going to say next up p span. So we have a span in there. We actually don't want this to be font weight 500. We're going to make it 400, so it's different. But we're then also going to make the style of it italic. So we're going to give it the italic effect. Now let's go back. Let's refresh. And there you go. You can see this is kind of looking good. So it's kind of thicker. Here it's kind of bold. And then you get the lightweight font there, which says kindest regards by Whit Lowery. And there you go. So that is looking good. So this looks really good. But one thing we're going to run into problems with is when we go down, it doesn't look that great on mobile. Well, that's too small anyway. But you can see here, it looks all right. But there's curved edges and stuff. That does not look right. So let's just do a little bit of mobile responsiveness. So what we're going to say is at media, and we're going to say max width, which is 414 pixels, because if we're going to go with the width of what we've gave the actual music player. So once we hit that width, we're then going to say dot player, and this is the only thing we actually need to change. We're just going to say min height, and we're going to set it to 100 VH. So we're going to make it stretch the whole screen again. We're then going to say border radius, and we're going to say 0 pixels because we don't want those border edges anymore. We want it to stick to the edges. And we're going to say padding. We're going to shrink it down a little. It's a bit too big right now. Let's make it slightly smaller. And there you go. So if we refresh, nothing happens. But if we go into mobile view, you can see it stretches to fit the screen. So let's make this bigger. You can see it goes like that. And then when you shrink it down, it snaps to the edges. So it becomes a full screen on an actual mobile device. So let's turn this to, let's say, iPhone X. You can see it looks good on mobile on an iPhone X as well as it does on a desktop player. And that is it for this tutorial, guys. So this was just a CSS UI HTML sort of beginner course. In the next video, we're actually going to hook this up to JavaScript and make it look all fancy. So we're going to have this button actually hit play, and it will actually play the song. When you click next, it will go to the next song. This will all update, the image will update, the text will update, and so will that. And it will actually play music in your browser, which I think it's going to be pretty awesome. So if you're excited for that, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and be prepared for the next video, guys. Thank you very much, and peace out.